What up, though? We are live.
Love being live. Welcome to the Pistons Talk Podcast on YouTube. I'm your host, Lance Caparosi. Follow me on Twitter at Lance Caparosi. Follow my co-host Anthony at Pistons Talk across all social media platforms. If you haven't already, Anthony started the brand. I hitched my wagon to it. All right, let's get this started. Man, Gilbert Arenas, as you can see in the title, talking some mess about pretty much just taking a dump in Detroit on Monty Williams, the Pistons, and the city of Detroit. Man, we should be calling for his head. I'm not gonna lie. It was that bothered me. There's not a lot of people that get my blood boiling when it comes to like the national media.
Mm-hmm.
That those comments he was making, and I don't know the full context of it all, but man, I was just so annoyed. I was tipping to the point of anger. That's how annoyed I was with Gilbert Arenas because he seemed clueless about the whole thing. But maybe you could fill me in some more. What was the context behind all of that?
So Gilbert Arenas' main context, why he was talking about Monty Williams, or why he thinks the Pistons overpaid for him, was because he thought that $78 million would be taking away from the Pistons' potential cap space. But me and you both know cap space on players and salary on coaches are separate. The owners pay that, and I think Gilbert was, I don't know, misled. Whoever does his preparation for his show should be fired because they made him look like a huge ass. But this isn't the first time he's talked about the Pistons over the past couple of months. I mean, I remember him talking mess about Bill Laimbeer a couple months ago, saying that he couldn't play in today's NBA, even though he was a stretch five during his time. He said that Isaiah Thomas and the Bad Boy Pistons, the only reason why they won back-to-back championships is because they had a private plane. He has just said a lot of just crazy stuff. Like, I can give someone a chance on a podcast or a platform. I'm like, okay, maybe he was just having a bad day, right? Maybe he just feeling negative that day. Like, we all wake up maybe in a bad mood. Maybe he was in a bad mood, but it's just been constant disrespect towards the Pistons. And when you involve the city saying that no one wants to come to the city ain't worth shit, Detroit sucks, I think that's where more people had beef with it. Like, you can say whatever you want about the Pistons, but when you trash the city, I think that's where more people got pissed off with that whole clip that did go viral.
Yeah, I was more annoyed with that. Like I said, if you're talking about the Pistons, it's low-hanging fruit. They've been a bad team for a while. Like, get your jokes off while you can before this team starts winning. But man, to go after Monty Williams and go after the city, that was some BS in my opinion. Why do you think though that the national media members though are just dumping on Detroit in particular this move to sign Monty Williams? Like we were talking about Brian Windhorst last week. In my opinion, I just feel like the NBA media doesn't like traveling to the city of Detroit. Like it's one of those cities that they see it on their calendar, they roll their eyes, and they probably begrudgingly get their tickets to go to the city and to fly in or something. Like I just feel like the national media, they just hate coming to the city of Detroit because the city of Detroit still has that stigma of being a bad city, which all cities have their problems. Let's just be honest.
I want to separate the two because I don't consider Gilbert Arenas a national media member. I think he's a personality. I think Underdog Fantasy gave him a platform, much like Rasheed Wallace and Rob Perez, as a lot of people you guys know on Twitter as Wob. They gave them a platform. So I would kind of separate the two. I don't consider Gilbert Arenas a media member. I wouldn't put him in the same category as like a James Edwards or a Brian Windhorst. I think you can kind of separate the two. I think there are people that, like you said, they hear negative things about the city, but they haven't stepped foot in the city. I love Detroit, honestly. I love going down there. I love all the old historic buildings. I love, walking down, Woodward Avenue. Like I just love the city. Now, is there dangerous parts of the city? Absolutely. And you shouldn't go there. But there are really nice parts of the city. Like you can go down to Campus Martius, I think is beautiful. Even Hart Plaza, I think is beautiful. There's really nice parts of the city. But I think the reason why you see so many media members talk crap is, like you said, low hanging fruit. It's easy to talk crap about the city because so many people do it. I think the people that live here, or even live in Detroit for that matter, I should say, they know that the city is beautiful. It's great. And I kind of, I hate when people do that, when they do talk crap about not only Detroit, but the state of Michigan, because, we both live here. We like it. I mean, been here my whole life.
Same.
Like I said, I live like 20 minutes away from Detroit. Like, I think it's a really beautiful city. And I kind of wish that the media members would actually experience it, like go downtown, go to Greektown, go experience the nightlife, because it's a fun city, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about like the Palace of Auburn Hills, and it was kind of in the middle of nowhere. I get that. That part would be kind of boring if you had to travel to the city and there was nothing to do afterwards. But LCA is right downtown. There's so much to do, and there's so many things within walking distance. Like you can get lost in the city and like have a great time. So I don't know. I'm with you. I hate the disrespect the city gets. Like, it deserves a lot more, and the fans deserve a lot more. And I don't know. It's just it's been bothering me the last 2 weeks ever since the Pistons signed Monty Williams with what some of these guys have been saying. Going back to Brian Windhorst, it's just bothered me. It really has. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm kind of numb to it. I'm used to it. I'm used to the kind of like condescending, like, remarks and comments from, ESPN, or, even athletic writers for that matter. Not all, but some. I think I'm used to it. I don't really, raise an eyebrow when I hear it if it's from a certain person. But I think we know that the state is great. We know the city of Detroit is coming back. We're one of the very few, if not, I think the only state that has all four arenas downtown in Detroit. So the Lions are downtown, the Red Wings are downtown, the Tigers are downtown, and the Pistons are downtown. So the future is bright in Detroit.
By the way, before we end this segment, Gilbert Arenas was 6-15 against the Detroit Pistons, I believe, with like a 26% win percentage. So maybe that's why he's mad. Maybe just some old wounds.
Yeah, Chauncey Phillips was busting that ass. So shot the big shot.
Oh, for sure. All right, so this next topic, it's fun to talk about. We know they're not winning the championship. Let me make that very clear. Miami is not winning the championship, but they are tied with the Detroit Pistons with 3 championships apiece. So my question is, would it bother you if the Miami Heat won their 4th ring and broke that tie? Or does it not matter to you at all?
No, it doesn't bother me. Now, if it was the Bulls or the Pacers or the Bucks, yeah, sure. But I told you in the beginning of the year, the Nuggets were going to go deep into the playoffs. I just thought they had, all the, makeup of a championship caliber team, and they're one win away from winning their first NBA title, I believe.
Yeah.
So shout to them. It wouldn't bother me if the Heat did win a championship. I thought, the championships that the Heat do have, obviously LeBron was there for a couple, and then D Wade and Shaq, if I do remember correctly. So it wouldn't bother me at all. I think the Heat are a very good organization, and I think the Pistons should kind of strive to find those Heat culture guys, in my opinion.
Yeah, I really, real quick, I have no problem with a team winning a championship. I mean, there are teams that I'm less excited about. Like you were saying, if the Bulls win one, I'm like, fuck. Like, dang it. I mean, good for them. But I'm happy for all pro basketball players to reach that pinnacle and win the championship. It's just fan bases that can be insufferable. That would bother me more. Like if the Heat did win it, or because they are in a better spot than the Detroit Pistons, where next season they very well could get to the NBA Finals again. Because they did it this year, they're probably pretty much going to bring everybody back. Now, if the fan base was like mocking the other fan base, I'd be like, dude, this is stupid. That would bother me a little bit more. But if the Miami Heat won the championship and had 4, and the Pistons still had 3, I don't really care so much if the team did. It's just more of the fan base.
Yeah, like I said, I wouldn't really care about that. Like I said, if the Pistons were like, I'm just going back, let's say like, it's the Pistons and the Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals, and the Pacers beat us and they won a championship, and they were close to, having 4 championships, then yeah, I would be pissed. But hey, man, it's Miami. I don't even really think about it.
Who did you hate more coming up watching the Going to Work squad, the Pacers or the New Jersey Nets?
probably the Nets, just because, they did a lot of talking.
They did. They
They,
did.
they did a lot of talking, like Kerry Kittles and Jason Kidd and all those guys. Like they talked a lot of shit during that time.
Dude, I was so I'm just gonna before we move on, I just gotta share this little memory though. But when Chauncey Billups hit, I mean, I think they still lost the game, but he hit a half-court shot to tie it up. I was so pumped. I was jumping up on my couch, like, throwing insults at Richard Jefferson for some reason. Obviously couldn't hear me, but I was just so into that game that, man, I hated the Nets back then. I hated the Nets. I always respected the Pacers, but I hated the Nets. I loved Jason Kidd, but every time they played the Pistons, man, I hated that team. I hated that team. But yeah, I don't know. Again, it wouldn't bother me if the Heat won it and broke the championship. It broke the tie. I mean, it's just more about the fan bases, though. If you're going to be insufferable, I have more of a problem with that.
Yeah, I want Denver to win it just because it's a feel good story. First ever championship. They could have just tore that roster down, but they've stayed with their core players. Since they've drafted Jokic and Murray, and watching Murray, I'm really excited for Jaden Ivey because I think they have similar games.
Who would you, if you could pick like any player? I mean, obviously not the superstars. We'll leave them out of here though. But if you could have more of a makeup from a team, the Miami Heat or the Denver Nuggets, what path would you rather have the Pistons follow?
Between the two, I think Denver kind of speaks more volume to like what the Pistons could potentially build. Now, Denver, drafted both Jokic and Murray and they developed them. And, they brought in free agents and they traded for players like Aaron Gordon. I think that's more of a recipe that Detroit could try to model. But it's such a copycat league. I feel like every other, team in the NBA try to copy off of like the Miamis. They try to get those Heat culture guys when they don't have that Heat culture. They don't have a Pat Riley scouting or they don't have, that personnel. But like if you were to ask me if I had to pick, I would probably do Denver just because, that they traded for guys. And, they signed guys in free agency like a Bruce Brown. They got Ish Smith, Reggie Jackson, a lot of former Pistons. So I think Denver's approach would probably be more realistic if I were to tell Pistons fans like how we can try to replicate what they do and try to get back into the playoffs.
Okay. I would follow the Denver. I don't know. I'm kind of torn between the two, though. I mean, because I think Denver, what they do is just so special because they have, the Joker playing at the 5, and you're never going to find another guy like that. I mean, he feels like a real unicorn. You know what I'm saying? But
yeah, I mean, he's a point center. There's not a lot of point centers in the NBA. Like, I look at Houston. Like, they have a point center in Sengun.
Yeah.
They have Jalen Green. Like, you could kind of like if I were Houston, I would build around Sengun. That's just me. Just because he's not like Jokic, but he's similar, kind of like the Montes Sabonis. Like they're those point centers, and point centers are very rare in the NBA. There's maybe 3 or 4 in the whole NBA.
And I think too, like they just understand that, in order to win, there's a level of sacrifice you have to have, and they understand, like I wouldn't say necessarily when to take over, but they're smart about what shots they take versus what shots they give up. Those 3 players in particular. Like, I don't know, but it's going to be very hard to replicate anything the Nuggets do because there's only one Nikola Jokic. So,
yeah, like I said, if you were to kind of replicate it, like you're not getting Jokic.
Yeah.
We saw flashes of Duran kind of playing that point center role in those dribble handoff offense. So, I mean, like you can kind of like say, okay, I'm going to try to get a point center and a combo guard like Jamal Murray. I'm not comparing the two, but like Jaden Ivey and Jamal Murray are both guys that can play point guard and shooting guard.
Yeah.
We saw flashes of Duran kind of with his passing. I'm not saying they're completely identical, but you can kind of see the vision of like how, Denver kind of built their team, like building it around, a 2-time MVP and one of the best players in the league. But like, Jokic didn't play his entire rookie year. They were playing Yusuf Nurkic. Until Nurkic got traded, Jokic didn't get any playing time. They didn't even know what they had sitting on the bench. So you never really know when you're drafting these kids in the first or even the second round. So it's all about developing them and, eventually, building a championship team like Denver has done.
I do like the way the Nuggets play, though. Just that free flowing offense. Everybody's moving. Everybody touches the ball. It's a lot of fun, and that's the way basketball should be played. But we can move on to news real quick.
Sure.
Former Houston head coach Stephen Silas will be joining the Detroit Pistons as an associate coach under Monty Williams. A few notes under Stephen Silas: 20 years experience, which I was surprised by as an assistant coach with Chicago, Golden State, Charlotte, where I believe he coached with his dad, and Dallas. He played at Brown University for 4 years, was the head coach of the Houston Rockets from 2020 to 2023. What was really the thing? Why did he leave Houston? Was it just because, I mean, I know it was the losses were piling up. He had 2 losing seasons, but did he lose? Was it kind of like because he lost control of the locker room? Is that what it was?
I don't really know why they let him go. I have talked to some Houston fans, and they were just saying like he couldn't really motivate these guys, and I think there was a press conference where like someone asked him about drawing plays up for Jabari Smith, and he's like, "Well, why would I do that?"
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
It just got like really toxic, but I think he would be a good associate coach or an assistant coach, whatever you really want to call him. Like I put in the prep sheet, over 20 years. I think the last time he was an assistant was under Rick Carlisle with the Dallas Mavericks. So, I mean, he's been an assistant for quite a long time. I think the Pistons are really trying to hire a veteran established, coaching staff. And I think that's the right approach to make when, you have playoff aspirations. Like you want to make the play in probably this year. You want to start, winning games. You want to start, winning more than, 20 games a year. So.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, this hire didn't blow me away, though. I'll just be honest with you. Just because I have those mixed feelings about his time in Houston, because I don't know much about assistant coaches, I just know more about the failures of a head coach, because those are so much more prominent and that's what it gets talked about. So, I mean, I'm going to root for Stephen Silas, and I hope whatever he brings as a coach, I hope he brings it to Detroit and, it works out well for him. We got a few more coach news as well. So Jake Fisher reports that several assistants such as Mark Bryant are expected to follow Monty Williams to Detroit. Also, Dan Burke is another assistant coach that could join the Pistons bench. That is not official though. But Mark Bryant, it hasn't been official yet either, but he's a guy that also has 20 years of experience as an assistant coach. He was also a player in the NBA. He worked with big guys like Serge Ibaka, Steven Adams, Enes Kanter, Domantas Sabonis, and DeAndre Ayton. Played in the NBA from 1989 to 2003. So he was here when the Bad Boys won their last championship. Played with a lot of great names, so this would be a solid team. Clyde Drexler, Hakeem Olajuwon, Jason Kidd, Dirk, Juwan Howard, Tim Duncan, and Allen Iverson. That is crazy, though. What were you excited about with Mark Bryant? We were talking about this before we went on, but what excites you about him?
I think why I was excited when I did some, more research about him as a player and a coach was he's worked with a lot of great bigs, like just in NBA history, like, working with the Serge Ibaka, Steven Adams, who's still in the league, who's probably one of the best guys at just setting a pick. Like, I think that's why I'm excited, and because we've invested so much into our front court. I feel like he'd be just a guy that Monty trusts because, he was with him in Phoenix. He worked with DeAndre Ayton and, other big guys over there. And then, previously he's got that OKC connection with Troy Weaver. He was in OKC when Troy Weaver was in OKC. So I feel like there's some history there, but I think we've just invested so much into our front court that we need a guy that has played the center position before and can, really, teach these, young guys that we do have in the front court, of, how to, set a screen, how to, try to navigate maybe a pick and roll better. I feel like you've invested so much into that front court that getting a guy that has so much experience could really help them elevate their game.
I think so too. I think what's so valuable is that playing experience and playing with such great players because he can, think about all the years that he just watched film and had to break it down with great minds like a Dirk and a Tim Duncan, and Hakeem Olajuwon. Just talking about the bigs for a second, that is just so valuable, especially to such a young team like the Detroit Pistons. Getting in there, helping them break down film, maybe even sharing like how Tim Duncan and Dirk or Hakeem would approach a game or approach an opponent or approach practice. That stuff is going to be huge for these young bigs in Detroit. Yeah, I'm excited about the Mark Bryant hire. Again, it's weird talking about like assistant coaches so much because you only know so much, but former players, that is huge, especially for a young team. But Dan Burke, it is crazy though, man. For the Pacers and the Phillies, 20 years of experience. He's more regarded as a defensive-minded head coach, and he was with the Pacers from 2002 to 2019, and there were some great defensive teams from the Pacers in those early 2000s. But what are you most excited about with Dan Burke coming to potentially joining the coaching staff?
So the more research I did on all these, assistant coaches is like, I feel like you can talk about coaches, but I feel like you really learn about like what they've done and their experience by kind of like looking up of what teams, what previous jobs he's had. He was a directing of scouting at one point of his career before he got into assistant coaching. So he's kind of worn a bunch of hats, and he was Doc Rivers' associate head coach this year. So he was a guy that Doc Rivers leaned on a lot. But I think if we want to get better as a basketball team, you need a guy like Dan Burke on this staff because, like you said, he was a part of a lot of those great Pacer defensive teams in the early 2000s, and he was with the Pacers all the way up until 2019. If you guys do want to look something up, Dan Burke actually had a really funny comment about the Sixers because he was complaining about Joel Embiid getting a bunch of fouls, and then he goes and plays, or he goes and coaches Joel Embiid. But like I said, maybe I'll post that after this podcast is over. But I just think he's kind of regarded as kind of like that defensive coordinator that you need. Like Mark Bryant's more of that, players type of coach for centers. And then you got that defensive coordinator that can teach these young Pistons of, how to play defense, how to communicate and stuff like that. And he's got so much experience that, I wouldn't really worry with this coaching staff if he does decide to come to Detroit.
The one thing I'm excited about is just all the experience on the coaching staff. I think that is huge, absolutely huge. Guys that, we all talked about like having young coaches come in because they come with like fresh ideas and everything, but to have some veterans that are still in the game, sitting on the benches to this day with over 20 years experience, you don't have that much years of experience without growing with the game or adapting to what is played now. But also Dan Burke has a 28-minute video on YouTube about closeout defense. So
yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like because I didn't know anything about him, I'll be completely honest with you. But scrolling on the timeline, the people that actually did the research, they were like, yeah, this is like a defensive coordinator. This guy's like a defensive minded guru. Like this is a guy that, could really elevate the Detroit Pistons and, help Monty Williams and Steven Silas and the rest of the coaching staff help the Pistons get better. And that's something that the city hit and the Pistons have really prided themselves on is defense. Yep. I don't know how much you can teach them now in today's NBA with the rules and, how it's more of an offensive driven league, but if you can, help them, become a better defensive team, I'm here for it.
Well, I think with the closeout defense, especially, like you probably teach them patience in that regard, because that is such a easy way for an offensive player to draw fouls because you're sprinting right at them. Like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope gets called for at least one every single game in the finals I've watched, at least, where somehow, Kyle Lowry just baits him into a foul and he's heading to the line. So I don't know. I think it's important, and I'm glad that the Pistons are trying to establish the defense again in Detroit. So that's
Like I said, I probably did more research on trying to find like what these guys did, because I feel like anyone could talk about coaching, but like to kind of give you a better background of like where they played, if they played. Like Steven Silas never made the NBA, but he played at Ivy League school for 4 years. Yeah, as a guard. So, he's a former guard. Like, I'm sure not a lot of Pistons fans know that. Dan Burke, like I said, an assistant kind of, known as a defensive-minded coach. Mark Bryant played in the league for years and played with a lot of Hall of Famers. Like, I could have listed so many more players that he played with, like playing with Robert Ory, Bruce Bowen. Like there were so many players that he played with. So it's pretty crazy.
I think I got a Mark Bryant basketball card from every one of his teams that he played for somewhere.
Yeah, he was a journeyman for sure.
Does it matter to you whether a coach played in the NBA or not?
I think it helps.
I definitely think it helps as well.
I like Dwayne Casey never played in the NBA, but he played college basketball. I think you see a lot of these player coaches. Not all of them are successful, but I think the players have a easier time relating to them because they've actually done it and they've actually been in the league. I think that's why you see some player coaches actually have success. Like Steve Kerr has a lot of success in Golden State, and obviously inherited a great team. But he was a very good basketball player, and he's a very smart basketball mind. I think some of the better coaches in the NBA were guys that have actually played before.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like especially guys that understand the grind of an NBA player and what they're going through on a day-to-day basis. It definitely helps. Someone that they can look to and be like, because I mean, if you're a guy that played 10 plus years in the NBA, you've probably seen every situation on and off the basketball floor that at least some player on the team is going through, whether it's related to basketball on the court or it's like personal problems off the court. If you've played that long in the NBA, you have some experience where you can help. So it's definitely valuable. This is an interesting piece of news. We're going to talk about some of the players real quick. So this comes from the Detroit Pistons are expected to pick up Alex Burke's team option for $10.5 million this summer. Not sure exactly who this comes from, but I don't know, But anyways, I hope they do. I feel like Alex Burks gets lost in. He's been lost in this offseason when we've talked about bringing players back, and I don't know why. It feels like that's a name that we're never mentioning. I feel like fans have always talked about we need guard depth, we need guard depth, we need guard depth. Well, we do still have Alec Burke on this roster, and I hope he comes back. He's a very good player, a free throw hunter. I mean, he is amazing at that. Like, I don't know how many times he went to the line per game, but it felt like it was like 8 to 10. Just incredible. He lived at the line this past season. But do you think the Pistons should pick up his option?
Oh, 100%. I think getting Alec Burks at $10 million right now is a steal because I think the market is just going to open up completely. Obviously, they could say no and have more cap space, but like, who are you really signing as a two guard that is equal or better than Alec Burks without overpaying? I think $10 million for him is a good deal. The only thing you really are concerned with him is health. And like his foot, if it's going to flare up again, or he's had like a lot of this naggy, like freak injuries throughout his career. Like nothing really serious, but just some of the injuries that he has had throughout his career just kind of sidelined him. But I think he's another good vet. Like I told you, him and Bojan to me are the two vets that I wanted the Pistons to keep, and they did. And you can kind of see Jaden Ivey definitely picked up a lot of his foul baiting towards the end of the year. So he's just a vet that I'm happy that they are going to extend him this summer and keep him on the roster going into next season.
Yeah, he's also just super versatile on offense. Like he doesn't play a ton of point guard, but there are times where he'll bring the ball up the floor. He's more of that 2 or 3, but good outside shooter, can get to the line like we were talking about. Good from the mid-range, valuable experience as a veteran and a professional for the young guys. So 10.5, that's a steal. And you're right. I don't know who even with the cap space. So let's just say they don't re-sign him. If they don't pick up his option, they'll have $40 million worth of cap space to spend. But I don't see, I've talked about Javon Carter and, there's some guys throwing out other names out there like Dante DiVincenzo, nice players, but I would rather keep Alec Burks. And I just feel like we're not talking about enough about Alec Burks and like what he meant for the Pistons this past season. Probably because it was a losing season, but I just think he gets lost in all of that.
Yeah, I think he's a good vet. He's a good presence. And there were games where I think he had like a stretch where he had like 12 straight games where he's scoring 15 points or more off the bench. He's just a guy that can get hot in a hurry, and he's one of those guys that a lot of playoff teams want off your bench because if you need offense, he's going to get you offense. And I'm sure Monty Williams can work with him, where there were a lot of times last year where he was just taking really bad contested shots. But who else is going to shoot it, right?
And he was one of those guys too where I was watching like, man, if the Pistons had won just a few more games, he might have been in contention for the Sixth Man of the Year award. Probably wouldn't have won it. Definitely wouldn't have won it. But if they were winning, it would have been more of a conversation because I thought he was one of the better guards to come off the bench in the NBA this season. Very underrated game. Just needs to stay healthy and, play a few more games each season. James Edwards III reports that the Detroit Pistons main targets are Jeremy Grant and Cameron Johnson at the forward position. This comes from the Hoopside podcast. Both interesting names. Me and you are both more on Cameron Johnson. We like his game. We like his fit overall. Jeremy Grant, a lot of fans still love him. Would love to see him back in Detroit. But between the two, who do you want more on this team? I guess I'll just ask you again. I think I know the answer, though.
If I had to pick between the two, probably Cameron Johnson, just because I know that he's not going to say, hey, I need to get my 25 or 30. I feel like he's just a complimentary, can't say that word, complimentary player next to Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. And you could arguably put him at the 3. You could put him at the 4. He played a lot of 4 in Brooklyn, but I think if he were to come to Detroit, you probably put him at the 3. I have nothing against Jeremy Grant, but during Cade's rookie season, I just saw way too many times with him taking the ball off the floor and, waving Cade off. And now you have another ball handler in the backcourt in Jaden Ivey. If you were to sign Jeremy Grant, I just think it would just be too much isolation ball, and I think Cam Johnson makes more sense as a fit. He's not going to, try to take the ball up the court and, wave Cade or Ivy off. He's just going to be one of those guys that's going to be in the corner splashing threes,
But is that Jeremy Grant? Is that still his game? I didn't watch a lot of Portland games. When I talk about Jeremy Grant, it's more of what I saw in Detroit, though. But this team with Cade, with the development of Jaden Ivey, I would hope that if he gets brought back, he would understand, okay, this is their team. I gotta take more of a backseat to them. And if Jeremy Grant, I would take Jeremy Grant over Cameron Johnson, if only he was coming to the Pistons and playing kind of more like that role that he had with the Denver Nuggets. Probably more, I would rather have him more scoring. I'm not saying go from 20 a game to go to 12 a game, but moving without the ball, focusing more energy on defense, trying to lock guys up and relocating the perimeter and giving basically like a safety valve, for a guy driving and looking for someone to kick it out to. That's what I'd want to see more from Jeremy Grant. But if he's going to come back to Detroit and he's going to wave Cade off and he's going to do the isolation stuff like he was and take the long, mid-range jumpers instead of shooting threes, then yeah, I wouldn't want him. I'd rather go with Cameron Johnson. But my only gripe with Cameron Johnson is that he's not always healthy. And I guess even in Jeremy Grant's 2 seasons in Detroit, he never played over 60 games in the season, though. But again, we were not a very good team. He was taking more games off than he ever had because, in his games with his seasons in Oklahoma City and Denver, he was playing over 70, even 80 a couple of times. But anyways, I like that Jeremy Grant has more tools in the tool belt. I like that he can play isolation ball. I like that he can create his own shot. It's just I need him to keep that a minimum if he comes back to the Detroit Pistons.
For sure. I want to give a shout out to Ashton. He's watching right now.
Oh, wow.
So shout out to Ashton. He said he wants Dorian Finney-Smith, which I think would be phenomenal. Hell of a defender. That's like the wing defender you need, though. Want to give him a shout out because, big supporter of the podcast. And, he's the biggest hype guy on Pistons Twitter, by the way. I get, I'll be scrolling the timeline. He's like, 6 seed. I was like, fuck yeah, 6 seed.
I do like Aston the trainer. I don't know, man. Again, between the two, it's obviously Cameron Johnson. I love his skill set with this team. I love what he brings on both sides. It's just the health is the biggest issue. But then with Jeremy Grant, it's just, I don't know. I don't want him to play the hero ball stuff in Detroit. I'd rather see that more from Cade and Jaden Ivey. I want Jeremy Grant more to take a back seat, if that makes sense to anybody listening right now. I want him to take more of a back seat. I don't want him looking Cade off because that just doesn't make sense to me. But how much would you be willing to pay? Let's say the Pistons, we'll talk about both. But if they're bringing in Jeremy Grant, how much money do you think they're going to sign him to? Or what's fair?
I think with Jeremy, you're probably looking close to 30 mil a year.
Okay.
I think Jeremy's going to get paid, whether it's with the Pistons, the Blazers. Excuse me. I think Jeremy's going to get at least 30 million, just because he's a veteran. He's one of the best forwards in the NBA.
Still
yeah. I mean, he's a good player. I will say, because I did see some comments why we are doing this, podcast live. Jeremy did defer towards the end of the year, but the fact that we had Cade during his rookie season, and he wasn't really deferring to him when when he had months of March when he was putting up 25 points a game. It's crazy. But to your question, I think 30 mil for Jeremy. I think the report was 90 million, which is around 22 per year. I think Cam could get 32. I think if it's the right team to force Brooklyn's hand, because he is a restricted free agent, I think if you give Cam Johnson 30, Brooklyn probably will have to let him go, because I don't think they can afford to keep both Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson, because Mikal's going to have to get paid eventually too.
Yeah, I think he signed an extension. I think he's making like around 22 or 23 million a year. So I think he signed a 4-year, $90 million contract as well. But let's say there becomes a bidding war between the Pistons and the Brooklyn Nets, and you are paying, and Cameron Johnson wants at least 22 million, but then you end up paying 30 million. Don't you feel like you'd lose out on that a little bit? Like you're kind of getting shafted a little bit if you ended up overbidding for Cameron Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends how much you want him. I think it would probably have to be a sign and trade if they are going to renounce his rights, because he is a restricted free agent. And I don't really know what you would want to do with Brooklyn in a sign and trade, but I feel like he would just fit seamlessly on this core. Not to say Jeremy wouldn't. I would feel more comfortable with him because I've seen him do it in Phoenix. And I know Jeremy had success in Denver, had a good season in Portland. I would just kind of find it hard to believe that you trade a guy and then you bring him back, to pay him a big contract. Not to say he's not worth it. It's just, if you liked him that much, you should have just held on to him.
Yeah, but I mean, it's you're playing chess. You want to get a high lottery pick.
Yeah, I know. It's
keeps you out of it.
I know, because you got Duran out of it. But at the same time, it's just like maybe Troy's playing 4D chess and he had to get Duran so he could, get Jeremy back. But me personally, I would probably go for the Cam Johnson, just because I feel like his 3-point shooting could really help this team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The more I'm talking about it, the more I'm interested in like Denver Nuggets, Jeremy Grant, but with more tools in the tool belt. Like if I'm getting a combination of what we saw in Detroit, what we saw in Portland from Jeremy Grant, but plus the role he was playing in Denver, that might be the best player of the two. I might be talking myself into that. I'm very interested in Cameron Johnson, but man, the thing that just scares me is just the health, man. And I hate saying that but I mean, it's the truth. Like 57 games, 60, 66, and then 42 this past year.
Yeah. Like I said, you shouldn't really try to break the bank for them. But if you can, get them at a fair price, like if you can get Cam Johnson at 90 million, I think that's fair. I just think Jeremy's probably going to command at least 30. I just do.
Who would you rather pay 30 million to, Jeremy Grant or Cameron Johnson?
Probably Cam.
Okay.
I know it's an overpay though. It's just, I know people are saying Jeremy's not the same Jeremy as he was, in Detroit. Like to say that, it's like, yeah, he played with Damian, he played with the better core over in Portland.
Yeah.
But you have to remember, this is still an incredibly young team. Portland's a little bit older than us. I mean, they have young pieces like Nasir Little, Anthony Simons, but Anthony Simons is a walking bucket, right? I still think Jeremy would probably be a second option next to Cade, in my opinion.
Oh man, I don't know,
because he can get you 20 anytime. Like,
yeah, but I mean, if you could have 3 20-point scorers, Cade, Ivy, and Jeremy Grant, that's kind of enticing a little bit, right?
Yeah, like I said, he could be like to me, I think he'd be a second option. I think Jaden Ivey would maybe suffer the most with Jeremy Grant. But because that's a whole nother topic and a whole nother conversation.
I'm just kind of envisioning Jeremy Grant kind of playing like, because we were talking about the Denver Nuggets earlier. Like, just imagine a lineup of like Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham, Jeremy Grant, Jalen Duren, and then Bogey. You kind of have like man, like a thrift store version of the Denver Nuggets right there. You know, like you don't really have like the great passing big, but you know, Jalen Duren has shown the flashes. You got the shooter and Bogey like they do in Michael Porter Jr. Mm-hmm. You have the guy that's gonna kind of the Swiss Army knife in the starting lineup in Aaron Gordon, which is Jeremy Grant, where he's making cuts. He can hit the 3-point shot. He's defending all over the place. And I don't really know who Cade is on the team. He might be our Jokic. And then you have like the Jamal Murray type and Jaden Ivey, like you were making the comparison. It's kind of cool. Maybe not a thrift store version. That might have been a bad deal, but like,
yeah, I don't even know what the hell you're talking about.
No idea. I have no idea.
I was like, what the hell is he talking about?
Well, I was thinking of like Jeremy Grant kind of in like that Aaron Gordon role, like in with the Denver Nuggets. And I'm thinking, man, that'd be kind of cool if he played that role with the Detroit Pistons. But we we're also making the comparison to the team earlier. So I'm bringing it back. But yeah, I'm all over the place.
Oh, come on. Okay, come on, Ashton. You can't tease us like that. You can't tease us like that, man. Come on. You got to at least hint who we played for so we can try to figure it out. Already got a commitment from a player that wants to play for us.
Is this someone he had worked with before?
Man, you can't be dropping a bomb like that, man. Man.
Tweeted about before. Just give us that.
Yeah, just tell former team or former teams he's played with. Oh, man. No, it's not Devin Booker.
Now you want to hear that. Okay, let's get back to this just for a second. Feel free to drop it in the messages at any moment. But two lower-level free agent James Edward III reports on the Pistons could be interested in is Tori Craig in Utah. I cannot say his last name.
Don't say his last name.
Okay.
Just don't say it. Just say Utah.
Utah. This also comes from the Hoops Pod. I kind of like Tori Craig. Like I liked his game. Why do you think, but every time I've always been kind of nervous about just throwing his name out there on Twitter because I feel like he just gets dumped on so much. I thought he was always a solid player. I'd be happy with either one of these guys. And I felt Utah kind of got, shortchanged when the Brooklyn Nets made that trade. Like he was the guy that got moved to the bench, but he was having a good year earlier in this season. But yeah. I guess who are you looking at?
I think Tori Craig makes a lot of sense. He's been vastly underpaid throughout his career. He was with Monty, and he's a cheap 3-and-D wing that you can get. You're not going to have to break the bank to get him. He even played in Denver before. I remember having him on fantasy, and he was just productive. Like he's just a good player. With Utah, I think why the Pistons would be intrigued is that 3-point shooting. When he was in Brooklyn, there was a month where he was shooting 50% from three. I think he finished the season, mid 40s, which is still great. When I look at like names like these, they're very underrated and under the radar, and you wouldn't really expect, the Pistons to go after. Maybe Tori Craig you would because of the Monty Williams connection, but Utah I think is been underrated. I mean, I remember him on Toronto. He didn't have that shooting in Toronto that he did in Brooklyn. Brooklyn has done a really good job at just developing, players over the years. Their development is really good over there. I would be interested in both. It's just I kind of like these names, but they're really sneaky in my opinion. They're like low key names that I could be on board with. I
mean, Tori Craig shot 40% if you round up on 3 attempts this past season. That's huge. That's great shooting. What did Utah shoot? Wasn't he shooting like something like 48% from 3 at one point during the season?
Yeah, like he was just berserk from 3, man. Like I remember KD was like praising him, saying like, man, he's shooting higher than I am right now, like shooting like damn near 50%.
Yeah, I think Kyrie Irving was praising him, calling him the best shooter in the NBA as well.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you can get him at a cheap deal, I think most Pistons fans would be on board. Same with Tori Craig. I mean, like you obviously need wings, you need vets. Like Tori Craig, you're not gonna have to overpay for Tori Craig. The guy, if you look at his career earnings, he hasn't made a whole lot throughout his career.
You think he makes more than Marvin Bagley? Do you think either one of these guys get paid more than Marvin Bagley?
Utah might. Just because of the shooting and where the league is now, like obviously you need 3-point shooters. Like I could see like a team like the Kings, like this going all in on a Utah. But like, hey, man, they're two nice players in my opinion.
He's a pretty good defensive player though, too, right? Yuta is like
I mean, he's an average. He's not like a lockdown defender by any
yeah,
means.
no, but I mean, great size at that 3 spot at 6'9", 250, and he's a lefty. Yeah, sign him up, man. We need more lefties on this team. We don't have enough. Yeah, definitely two names right there. Okay, this is the big topic. I can't wait to talk about this topic.
Okay.
Executives believe the Detroit Pistons are willing to move on from Isaiah Stewart after the James Wiseman trade. This comes from Hoops Hype when James Edward was talking to Michael Scotto. Dude, let me just ask you real quick. Do you think Isaiah Stewart will get traded? Do you think there's any chance that he actually gets traded at any point during this offseason or this upcoming season?
I think if there was a big to get traded, it's not Stewart.
Okay.
I think Bagley would be traded before anybody else, if I had to make a guess, because him and James Wiseman are very similar. I've told you that. I think Duran is your starting center. I think Stewart, and they kind of went in depth on the Hoop Site podcast why, GMs around the league thought this. They thought as soon as the Pistons traded for James Wiseman that the Pistons were going to move on from Isaiah Stewart. I think it's just outsiders trying to look in to seeing what the Pistons are trying to do. I think Isaiah Stewart is such a culture-setting player that he does so many things that don't show up in the box score.
Yep.
And I think Troy Weaver, that's why Troy Weaver traded for him. That's why he traded Christian Wood in a sign and trade with Houston to get Isaiah Stewart, because, he's known of Isaiah Stewart since he was a little kid. He's just a hard worker, nice guy, probably the nicest guy I've ever met before. Like, I was so intimidated when I met him, like at a golf event, dude. Like, I was so scared, but he was the nicest guy, dude. Like, he talked my head off. I love Isaiah Stewart, man. Like, when I heard this, I thought it was just like, dude, it was bullshit. It's just, outside media thinking that the Pistons have too many bigs. Personally,
yeah, it's like we were talking about before we went live. Like, I like James Wiseman, and I hope it all works out. But I mean, so far, the two bigs that are going to be on this team for years is Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart. Like, I don't, again, love James Wiseman, but I mean, I don't think he's that big of the future. I don't think he, unless he really starts changing his game and everything starts clicking for him. But I definitely think it's Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren. I don't want to trade Isaiah Stewart because whether this dude is starting or coming off the bench, he's going to give it his all, man. He is going to bust his butt up and down the floor. He's going to make guys work for it defensively. He's one of these dudes that has worked incredibly hard to change his game, and you need that. It doesn't matter if he's playing 20 minutes a game, 28 minutes a game, 10 minutes a game. He is going to just play like, it's game 7 of the NBA finals and, the championship's on the line. That's what I love about Isaiah Stewart. He is a foundation piece. He's a culture setter. And again, can you imagine going against that guy every day in practice? It would be unreal. Like, you would automatically get better because he's going to probably go into practice like he's playing a game. Mm-hmm. I think people are overlooking, like you had said, the stuff he does. It doesn't show up in the box score, the defensive versatility. He can guard a 4. He can guard a 5. He can make things difficult for guys on the perimeter when he switches. He has great footwork to be able to do that. He is very valuable. And I think expectations for him since his rookie year have just been through the roof, and they have been unfair. I'm guilty of this myself. Mm-hmm. And there's a name that I have thrown out a couple of times. You laugh every time I say it, but I really think Isaiah Stewart is our Nick Collison or Udonis Haslem, man. Just that culture center guy. Dude, do not hate on Nick Collison, man. There was an article from his rookie year, and it sounds eerily similar to Isaiah Stewart, where he said, look, I'm playing with Ray Allen and Rashard Lewis. Even Flip Morgan and Luke Ridnour, they need room. I need to start shooting from the outside. I need to give them that 15-foot jumper to create space. Isaiah Stewart basically said the same thing. They are one of a kind, and they are going to be – Isaiah Stewart, like Nick Collison, is going to be here for 10-plus years and probably end up having his jersey hanging up in the rafters. He won't be a Hall of Famer, but he will be a superstar to Detroit Pistons fans.
You got to stop comparing Isaiah Stewart to Nick Collison. It's so disrespectful.
It is not. It's perfect.
No, it's not. It's Nick Collison. What did he average? Like 3 points a game throughout his career?
Not, but you can't. No, he averaged 5 and 5.
Oh boy, Isaiah Stewart's a better player. But I get what you're trying to say.
Yeah, it's just
No, I can't even put them in the same conversation.
Come on.
If you said Serge Ibaka, I'd be like, okay, I kind of see it, but come on, Nick Collison, no.
No,
Uh,
I don't see I don't see that with that, but
but my biggest takeaway is the outside media doesn't know what the Detroit Pistons are doing with all these bigs.
yeah.
We've talked about it several times. Troy Weaver values a front court. And he said it multiple times. Milwaukee, Boston, Cleveland, they're all teams in the Eastern Conference that have size in the middle and size at the forward spot. And if we want to compete with those teams, we're going to have size in the middle. That's why he traded for James Wiseman. And Sadiq Bey reportedly wants to get paid like $20 million. So, I mean, that's why they traded for James Wiseman. And he was the second overall pick in the 2020 draft. And he's had a lot of injuries, throughout his career. So, they basically said this is like his rookie season. I think there's a lot there with James Wiseman that we haven't even seen. We're getting a whole new coaching staff that can work with him. I think Isaiah Stewart has developed probably the most out of the 2020 draft class that the Pistons have drafted. I think he's developed way more than Killian. He's developed more than Sadiq. That 3-point shot, I think he was close to 34% this year, basically. I like Isaiah Stewart a lot. I think he could be your traditional stretch four that can switch defensively. He's probably the Pistons' best defender on this team right now. He's just so versatile defensively. And like I said, the culture thing, he's a culture setter. He's a guy that I think a lot of fans love, and deservedly so. Like I view him as like the Kevon Looney of the Detroit Pistons. Just a glue guy that you need on this roster. And I would be surprised if they traded him. I think he gets an extension, personally, before he gets traded.
So do I. I think he's going to be here for a long time. He's the most versatile big so far on this team, offensively and defensively. I mean, not the most athletic, but he gets the most out of his athletic abilities, and that's why I love Isaiah Stewart. I mean, I really hope he is here for 10 or more years, man. I really do. I just want to always root for this guy. I don't ever want to see him in a different jersey. I don't. But what do you think is a fair price though for him per year? Are we talking like 20 million, or are you trying to still keep him in the teens?
Who, Isaiah?
Yeah, for Isaiah Stewart.
He could probably get 10 to 15, personally, with his next extension. Like, I think that's fair. And I think he would probably accept it. Like, Isaiah Stewart's never going to lead, the team in scoring.
Yeah, of course.
But you know what he's going to lead the team in? Hustle points. Like I already know Monty Williams is going to love working with the front court that we have. They don't like to play video games. They just like playing basketball. I can't wait.
Yeah, I was thinking like somewhere of like maybe like 15 to 18 million for his extension. I think that's pretty fair for Isaiah Stewart. I think. Yeah. Real quick, if there was a big on this roster, who do you believe the Pistons would deal in a trade first? I think you answered it already. Marvin Bagley's the consensus. Mm-hmm. I don't know, but we've talked before. In order to get rid of Marvin Bagley, you'd probably have to bring something back, but also you probably got to pair him with something.
Yeah, I got a feeling that Troy's gonna flip him during the draft while we're live, because we will be live during the draft. I feel like you package 31 and Bagley, maybe you can get into the late first. Maybe you make a deal with the Lakers, or you make a deal with a playoff team to try to get back into the first round. You know how Troy Weaver is. Like you called it before we went live with the Duren pick. You're like, watch us trade for Duren. What happened? We traded for Duren. So I don't doubt Troy Weaver. I don't doubt that he could get some draft compensation for Bagley. It just depends on if the team needs a backup. But like I said, that's just hypothetical. It's not a report. I don't know if they'll move on from Bagley, but like I said, if they do, he would probably be the big that they would move on from, because the other three bigs are, I think more easily you could play them more, because Duren's going to show off on both ends of the court. Stewart's going to do that too. Wiseman has shown flashes of being able to bother shots, and he's got a very nice post game. So I would probably say they move on from Bagley just because they already have a Wiseman.
Man, the Bagley era might be over in Detroit. That's crazy to me. It was a good one. Let's move on. The Ringer latest NBA mock draft has Cam Whitmore going fourth overall to Houston. If this is the outcome, are you drafting Jarace Walker, Amin Thompson, Asura Thompson, or Taylor Hendricks, or another name? I'm going to turn over to you first. Who are you drafting out of those four?
So this is hard. I watched so many highlights and so much tape of these guys today, and it's like I like Whitmore a lot. I really do. But like if Amin Thompson is there at 5, like I would it would be really hard for me to pass up on that. But like I said, it's Kevin O'Connor being Kevin O'Connor. Like if the Rockets took Whitmore at 4, like I don't know, man, but I'm leaning more towards Taylor Hendricks the more I watch him, just because his ability to stretch the floor and block shots. I like Jarace Walker. I question if he can put it together on the offensive end of the floor.
Okay.
I think Hendricks to me is just, if he's there, man, like it would be really hard for me to pass it up.
I know the more I think about it, like I always lean more Jarace Walker because I just feel like he has more tools in the tool belt right now. But I feel like his ceiling is the lowest of the 4 that we're talking about right now. But I'm just so intrigued by Taylor Hendricks. But it's what I talked about last week. I just don't know if Taylor Hendricks is a day one player for him, whether it's starting or coming off the bench, doesn't matter to me. I just don't know. I mean, because the defense is good, but there are definitely still some holes defensively that he needs to clean up. And I don't know if they'll be cleaned up right away. I mean, every rookie's going to go through struggles. Let's just be honest. Like, that's just what's going to happen. But with Jarace Walker, I feel like you're getting a day one player right away. Like, you're going to be able to plug him into the starting lineup, and offensively and defensively, you're just going to be like, yes, this is awesome. Like, I feel like it. And I mean, I feel like that's going to be, he's going to surprise you right away. But then also he's just going to plateau a lot earlier than everybody else, which I think is fine because I think he might be the safest pick of these 4 if you're drafting, if these are the 4 that are available at 5. But why are you so now suddenly intrigued in Amin Thompson? Like, what has caught your eye in his game?
The playmaking. I know he's not a shooter. Neither Thompson twin is a shooter. They struggle from shooting. I would say Asur is the better shooter mechanically. I think I would probably put stock in him being a better shooter than his brother. But man, Amin, the way he can get to the basket, the way he can facilitate, his athletic, like if you watch some of the stuff he does, you're just like, how the hell did he do that? Like he's just such an athletic freak.
But
I think with the Thompsons win, it's just like, do you think you can develop them into at least an average shooter? And if you can, then you have something very special.
I think my biggest gripe though on the Thompsons twin is, and I've talked about this, is in the OTE, because I feel like a lot of the shots they were getting in the OTE are not going to be available into the aren't going to be available in the NBA. Like a lot of the things they were doing, it's just I feel like it would just be so hard to do it in the NBA because of the speed, the strength, and the length of NBA players. You know, you're not going against kids anymore, and I mean, you got to play the competition that's in front of you. And obviously, it worked for them because they're talked about as being lottery picks. It's just I feel like outside of the shooting, they're going to struggle a little bit more offensively because they were playing against inferior competition, you know? And I mean, I feel like the things they were getting away with, again, are not going to be available in the NBA. Like there were some shots where I forget, I don't know which Thompson twin it was, but they were throwing lobs to each other where they were right underneath the basket. And I'm like, those shots are not available in the NBA. Like I understand, like, you know, the short roll and you lob it to a big, but standing on the 3-point line, like that's a high school play where you have an athletic guy where you can just throw it up and they can just go up above everybody and catch it. And they're from a standing still position. Those shots are not available in the NBA. And that wasn't the entirety of their offensive bag, but that was a handful of their points where, again, it's just not available in the NBA. So I get the potential. I get why they're being talked about the way they are. I just feel like, again, even outside the jump shot, they're going to struggle offensively. And I think it's going to be a steep learning curve for those two.
I think Amin, his handle, even though it was against lesser competition, his handle is very advanced. And I think it's really going to help him get to the basket. and his ability just to get to the basket. I think he's better than his brother at getting to the basket. But I think Asur, to me, is more of your traditional good defensive wing that all these teams take chances on. Like I feel like I mentioned in every podcast when we talk about wings, like Patrick Williams shot up the draft board. He was
Yeah.
like a 13th to 15th pick. Bulls go 4 to go get him. I think both of the Thompson twins will be good. I think fit-wise, Asur makes more sense than Amin just because you have Cade distributing the basketball. You have Ivy distributing the basketball. You have Killian Hayes, who's probably going to be your backup point guard this year off the bench. I would probably, if I were forced to draft a twin, it's probably Asur just because I think defensively, good defender. Doesn't have the handle his brother has, but I think his jump shot to me is a little bit more ahead of his brother's currently. But getting back to like your question, with all these guys at 5, there's so many guys that could take at 5. Like realistically, there's 6 guys that could take at 5.
Real quick, I also want to say I think the Thompson twins will be fine in transition. I think they're going to get a lot of buckets that way, and they're going to be able to utilize their athleticism, and that leaping ability is just outrageous. Like I've compared, I think either one of them to like a Sean Marion, but then also at the same breath, a DeMar Johnson. Just those type of guys. But who are some other names you didn't list that you're interested in at 5? I know we talked about this before, but for the new people listening to the podcast.
I think if this is the draft board, obviously, just for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
So you would have Cam Whitmore, or not Cam Whitmore. I'm sorry, Jarris Walker, Taylor Hendricks, the Thompson twins, Trace Walker, and you could even throw Anthony Black in there if you want to be like have a hot take, because I feel like Anthony Black is kind of slept on a little bit. Just he's so good defensively. He's so versatile. But I feel like that's so big of a hot take that a lot of Pistons fans have probably just clicked off because I mentioned Anthony Black at 5. But if I had to pick, I'm probably going to go either Hendricks or Jarris. You get like right now, I would go Hendricks. But like in a week, I could like change my mind and go Jarris Walker the more I watch.
Yeah, I flip between both of them all the time. But I think right now it's Jarris Walker for me just because I think he's the most ready of the 4 we're talking about. But man, you could talk me into Anthony Black at 5 though as well. But I really want the Pistons to draft a 4 man. I would love to see the front line of Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, and either Taylor Hendricks or Jarris Walker. I think that could be a pretty special 3-headed monster against NBA teams. And I feel like that gives you enough length and athleticism to where you can compete with the Milwaukee Bucks, the Philadelphia 76ers, the Cleveland Cavaliers. So, and even like the New York Knicks, because they use Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson. So I feel like that would give you enough to really compete in the East with the other front courts that are out there.
Yeah, like I said, you're getting a good player at 5. It's just, if I was a GM, I would be terrified because there's so many good players you can get at 5. Like I told you, there's like realistically 6 players that you could draft at 5.
It's a deep class, man. It really is.
Dude, it's insane.
Let's talk about Chris Paul here for a second. Chris Paul was recently waived by the Phoenix Suns. Reports are that the Suns are looking to trade both Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton. Could the Pistons inquire about Chris Paul since he's a strong history with Manos? Why are we doing this to everybody? Why are we doing this to each other, man? Jeez. Yeah, it would be. I don't know. Would you, man, I couldn't even say, you can't even talk badly about Chris Paul. It would be amazing if he was in the Detroit Pistons uniform. It'd be coming completely out of left field. I wouldn't even know what to make of it.
Yeah.
It would be right up there with like Blake Griffin in a Pistons uniform where I'm like, I have to like rub my eyes to make sure that's actually real or not. That would just be insane. But yeah, dude, that would be, he says he likes Cade Cunningham's game. Who knows, man? And he could make it work, dude. Chris Paul, Jaden Ivey, and Cade Cunningham all could play on the floor together. That would just put a whole new wrinkle in the offense. It would be incredible. But what are your thoughts on that, man?
I just wanted to touch base on it because so many Pistons fans, like when the Suns wave Chris Paul, they're like, is he going to come to Detroit? I'm like, I don't think so, you guys. But he played under Monty Williams in Phoenix and New Orleans. I was like, I don't think 38, almost 39-year-old Chris Paul is going to come to Detroit. Love CP3. Loved watching him over the years, but I don't think he's going to come to Detroit. I think if CP doesn't get brought back by the Phoenix Suns, you could see a sign and trade. I've talked to some people that are joined to our Pistons group chat. If you guys haven't joined that already, I said watch it be a sign and trade with Kyrie Irving with Phoenix, where they just send him to Dallas with Luka. Like, I could totally see a sign and trade coming because obviously Phoenix still wants to compete for a championship. They want to save money. I feel like I think the report was they'll save $15 million if they do this by a certain date. I think it was like the 27th or 28th. But like I said, I think CP is probably going to go to a contender. He obviously wants to win a ring. I want to see him win a ring personally. I feel like he's just been such a good point guard throughout his career. I just don't think it's going to be with the Detroit Pistons, and that's okay. I mean, we had a shot to sign Chris Paul, but that was like way before we had Cade Cunningham. That was like in the mid-2000s when the Pistons were supposed to sign Chris Paul, but they never did.
You know where I want to see Chris Paul end up? I want to see him end up back in New Orleans. I want to see him run the show with McCollum, Brandon Ingram, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, Zion Williamson, whenever he gets over his stuff that's going on right now. That would just be – I feel like they're a Chris Paul away from being a serious contender in the Western Conference. I really do. Like, that would be such a great homecoming for him. I wish he never left New Orleans, man. I wish they could have built a team around him. That was much fun to watch him back in the day, dude. Him and David West, J.R. Smith for like 2 seasons, Tyson for like a season. That was really cool. So that would be I don't think it happens, but okay, let's just say, I don't know. I don't even want to talk about these other teams, but it's just.
Yeah, I know. I just had to bring it up because you know how Pistons fans are. Every time someone becomes available, it's like, can the Pistons trade for him? It's like, you gotta stop doing this.
I got I don't know who the account is that like makes the fake. It pretends to be the reporters, like he was pretending to be Chris Haynes. I fell for that, man.
Oh, you fell for Andre Stans.
I didn't, dude. It's like one of the only times you can count on my hand how many times I've deleted a tweet. I'm like, I'm not even gonna put up with this. I'm fucking deleting this, and I deleted it immediately because I fell for it, and I'm not gonna give him the satisfaction. I'll give him the satisfaction.
Hey, man, so did Bryce. Bryce fell for it too.
Yep. No.
Andre Stans has been around forever, and I think I know who runs the account, but I don't want to say it because I don't want to give up their identity. But they've gotten me. They've gotten so many people. Like when I used to work at Woodward, man, they used to get those guys at least once a week. Man, I would laugh. I was like, dude, look at the account.
Yeah, I used to have people that would send me those things. I'm like, you gotta just read the name, bro. Like, come on, this is not a real report. But dude, it got me, man, because I love Chris Haynes, and when I saw that profile picture, I'm like, no way, this is gonna happen. And yeah, I fell for it, man. So
yeah, I think he's on his like 7th account because he's got banned so much. It's like Andre Stan 7.
The Orlando Magic are looking to trade up into the top 5 and are willing to trade both of their lottery picks, 6th and 11th. The reports are they really like Amin Thompson. Okay, if this is true, and we go back to not the Chris Paul topic, but if Trace Walker and Amin Thompson, Asur Thompson, and Taylor Hendricks are available, and the Magic want the 5, and they're willing to give you the 6 and 11, yeah, you better pick up that phone and take that trade because you're Trace Walker at 6. That's a no-brainer of a trade.
Yeah, like if this report is true, by the way, one of my buddies that does cover the Magic, he said, yeah, they really like Amin Thompson. They're hoping he's there at 5 or even 4. If I'm the Pistons and Orlando calls saying, hey, we'll give you 6 and 11 for 5 because we want to go get Amin, I'm doing that because I still feel like I can get one of the better players in the draft at 6, and at 11, if there's a guy I like, I can get him too. I don't know if I would. I don't want to say it's a reach, but like I really like Jordan Hawkins. I don't know if Jordan Hawkins at 11 would be a reach, but like if you could come away with like a Taylor Hendricks and a Jordan Hawkins in the draft, you know how excited I would be.
Bro, that'd be unreal. It would be unreal if they could pull this off. I really can't believe the Magic are willing to trade 2 lottery picks 4-1. I mean, I guess they do got a young team, and they probably got to start, letting go of some of these lottery picks instead of being so young all the time. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's a Troy Weaver trade. That is definitely a Troy Weaver trade. And it saves you money a little bit, right? Too. Like if you can get Trace Walker and Taylor Hendricks at 6, a little bit cheaper than they would be at the 5th.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I don't know. I feel like they'd probably do Houston before they would do Detroit, just because Houston, I think it makes so much sense for Amin Thompson. He does kind of fill a void of what they need as like a playmaker, because they don't really have a traditional point guard. It's more of just Kevin Porter Jr. or even Jalen Green in some instances where he does play point guard, and Amin's kind of like that point forward. But like if Houston just takes, like, we can use Kevin O'Connor's mock draft. If he takes, Cam Whitmore and Amin's there at 5, I mean, I would make that trade if it's available.
I mean, if they take a Seward Thompson at 4 and Amin is still there, you never know.
I don't think Houston's that crazy. They're not that, like, I don't think they would do that, but
I don't know. We'll see.
I would take the trade if it was available, though.
Would
100%.
You? Well, okay, like let's say you could modify the trade. You get the 6th pick, and then you can get one of their players. Would you do that?
No, I would just take 6 and 11.
Okay. Like, but I mean, I don't know. What if they were just like, man, I can't believe I'm blanking on the name. The guy that they traded Nikola Vukovic for, Wendell Carter. Like, let's just say they gave you the 6th and Wendell Carter. Would you take that?
How many bigs do you want, Lance?
I just want enough of them that can actually play.
The guy to have a starting 5 full of centers.
Hey, well, we're talking about, I don't know. Maybe I'll take the 6 and 11. I was thinking Markelle Fultz. Like, if they're giving you Markelle Fultz in the 6th pick, that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, Orlando's a good team. They're just, I think they're ready to just really go all in and just push for the playoffs, because they were like flirting with the play-in all year, and obviously they drafted Paolo last year, and Markelle Fultz is looking like a good player. Jalen Suggs from the year before. So, I mean, they have a nice young core out there, and like people said, Wendell Carter, hell of a player. But I think that's why Orlando's looking to trade both of their lottery picks, just because they're trying to, get into that play-in, much like the Pistons are. And I think they're okay with trading 2 lottery picks to get a guy that could, make a lot of sense for them and help them, win playoff games.
What if you could get Victor W. Light, and Bol Bol in the 6th pick? You taking that?
Nah.
Oh, dude, that's kind of interesting, though. A 7'2" guy that can just do everything.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if Bol Bol got cleared, Marvin Bagley wouldn't be here. Like, I think that was like plan A.
Yeah.
Bagley was like plan B, and obviously it failed, but hey.
But you have a chance to redeem it. You have a chance.
No, I think we're good now. I don't need Bol Bol on my team anymore.
But it's Victor W. Light? No, I know.
No, he's not, man. It's disrespectful.
I don't know. I think it's fair. I mean, I can't call him Kristaps Porzingis Light. I guess I could. They're kind of all the same player. Anyways, let's move to Q&A.
Okay. Well, I drank 2 water, so I'll be right back. But this is a question. This is from Ashton. I actually started earlier. He wants to know what you think of Taylor Hendricks.
Ooh, I like Taylor Hendricks' game. Versatile 4, obviously. Everybody talks about that. The outside shooting is great. I think he shot close to 40% in college. The rebounding numbers, I know some people think he's a weak rebounder, but against good competition, he was pulling down some double-digit rebounds for UCF. Not like the best player near the rim, but can still get it done within a few feet. Defensively, that's what you're looking at. Versatile defensively, primarily going to play the 4. I think he can switch out and make things uncomfortable for people on the perimeter. Can do that small ball 5 if you want against some lineups. The biggest con against his game, I guess, is he's not much of a shot creator, which I don't know how much you need when you have Cade, Jaden Ivey, and a few other guys playmaking for him. But that's going to be the swing skill for him. If he can develop an ability to create his own shot, he's going to be one hell of a player. He is going to be a very special player. And I think that's kind of what now that I think about it, like you want to have that. So you want, like in today's NBA, you want everybody to be able to, dribble the ball, create their own shot, also hit the outside shot and switch defensively. He's giving you a lot of those. It's just just not being able to create his own shot as effectively as some of these other prospects. That's the biggest con against his game, I would say.
Yeah, like I said, the more I've watched him, the more I like him. I think he would just kind of, like if you put him in the front court next to Duran and his ability to stretch the floor, like I think his shooting is real. Like I just like some people like kind of question it. I think it's like legitimate. I think he could be an average 3-point shooter, and his ability to block shots too. I think is why I like him so much.
I like it, the defensive versatility, man. Like that's the thing that I'm in love with him and Jarace Walker, just that defensive versatility, man. Because defense is going to get you on the floor, but again, with Taylor Hendricks, I just think defensively there's just a few things he needs to clean up before he's really going to see significant minutes on an NBA roster.
Yeah, like I said, none of these prospects are perfect. Like some people joke that Cam Whitmore's only 6'5", and he's just a guard playing forward.
It's probably closer to 6'3". That's what I heard, but
I don't think he's that short. Damn. Let's see if there are any questions. I apologize. I did not expect Ashton to be watching us live, and I usually star questions during the podcast, but that was a cool surprise. Shout out to him for actually watching that. That means a lot.
Pretty cool.
That's funny, Chuck. That is true. That is true. Man, we don't really have any questions, but if you guys do have any questions, just drop them down below, and we'll answer a couple before we do hang up this podcast. I don't think we're gonna go for like 2 hours like we did the past 3 weeks, but yeah, man, it's crazy.
I'm surprised we haven't gotten any like free agency questions yet, or any trade questions, or any more prospect questions. What we normally get.
Here's a draft question from my man Bravo. There's a question. Oh, I hate when they do that. Hold on. How do you feel about Gigi Jackson with another pick?
We talked about him last week, right? I mean, this guy is 6'9". He can attack the rim, pretty athletic. Probably the most negative thing about him is just like his body language. And when I watch the highlights of him, this guy looks like he could have been a lottery pick. And I'm just surprised that I think he was mocked 31 to the Detroit Pistons in a Bleacher Report article a couple days ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, some people call him Brandon Miller Light, which is kind of funny. But I feel like Gigi's going to be a late first round pick. Like if he's there at 31, I would be ecstatic just because he's like, you watch him. He's just so athletic. He can run up and down the court. I really love his game, Bravo. And I'm not surprised you asked that question because you always have an eye for these draft picks. Like I remember when we used to do a show together, man, like he was trying to sell me a Nenny Avdia a few years ago. He's like, oh no, man, he's going to be a great player. And he was right. He's a pretty solid player. So I appreciate the question, Bravo. Hope you're doing well. I
got a question for you real quick.
Mm-hmm.
If Minnie shops Karl Anthony Towns this summer, or is there any interest from you?
I just don't think we have enough.
Yeah, you'd have to give up a lot for him. But let's just say they make it happen. But now you have a core of Jalen Duren, Karl Anthony Towns, Jaden Ivey, and Cade Cunningham. Somehow Troy Weaver does it that way. Is that like, do you think that's a good core going into the future?
Yeah, it's a good core, but you're giving up Jalen Duren if you want Cat. Like, if we're being honest.
I mean, they might just take Bogey. You never know.
Nah, they're screwed with Rudy Gobert. Like, they gave up so many draft picks, and his contract's atrocious. I think if Cat does go anywhere, man, I don't know why, but I could see him maybe going to a team like Sacramento if they get impatient. Like, Cat's weird because like there's a lot of teams around, maybe even OKC because they have the draft capital, if they would want to do it. And OKC's got a really young team. Obviously, they still have Chet Holmgren, and those workout picks, man, they're pretty damn funny. But
he's getting buff, bro. He's getting huge. He's getting Cade Cunningham buff. It's crazy.
Yeah, like that's pretty funny. I don't know. I don't think that he would be anywhere near like a realistic option for the Pistons. But now we're getting questions like crazy. This comes from CN Inc. Amani Bates should definitely be going higher in the draft, but he ruined his stock.
I think there's a lot of holes in his game. I don't think he's going to be playing like he did at Eastern Michigan. He wouldn't be playing that way in the NBA. He's not going to have that much freedom. I think he's going to need to. He definitely has an elite jump shot. When he catches fire, he catches fire. I think with him, and I've said this before, man, just go watch film of Duncan Robinson, JJ Redick, and Kyle Korver. Figure out how to play like them while moving and relocating along the perimeter just to get that shot of his up. That's what I really think he needs to do, because no team is going to draft him to be the guy. I don't think his skill set says that. But as being a shot maker in the NBA, he could definitely do that and have a long career. I just think he has to adapt his game and evolve his game to move more without the ball and learn to play, without it.
Yeah, like I said, I think Amani, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a late first rounder. And I know like most mocks have him like 50, 60 ranked. But I think, all it takes is a GM to fall in love with him.
True.
Because I think he's probably the most talked about prospect that's not a lottery pick. I know Mike Curtis had shot a video asking him what it would mean to get drafted by the Pistons, and there are people that they're not like, they don't watch basketball, but they would take him top 5 just because of how popular he is.
Yeah, which is weird.
I think it's deservedly so. I think he was a really good high school player. I think what happened with the college route, I don't solely blame him. I think it was more of his dad getting too involved. But I think he'll be a good player because he's got an elite skill, and that's scoring. But I just don't know if, the Pistons are going to draft him. I think it would be better for him if he got out of the state of Michigan. Just, got drafted by another team. Maybe, he goes to Phoenix, because I know he had to work out with them. And I know he, grew up watching KD and I idolized him a lot. It just kind of seems like a Ishbia thing to do lately with the way he runs the team.
Yeah, but I do not. I don't know. I think this dude's going to go up. And I don't mean it to disrespectfully. I just think it's a really deep class. I don't see him being drafted in the first round. I know we kind of talked about him going 31 to the Pistons a few podcasts ago. I don't even see that happening. I mean, I think he's probably going to be in the 50s when he's drafted, or just being a coveted undrafted player. I mean, and again, there's nothing wrong with that. Look at the Miami Heat. And look at Duncan Robinson. He got paid $90 million and he's undrafted. As long as you're willing to work and, put in that work, dude, good things could happen for you. You could have a long career in the NBA. And I just think Amani Bates right now, he has a steep mountain to climb to have a long NBA career. But I think he's talented enough to do it. I just don't think he's going to get any guaranteed money, because there's just too many holes in his game right now. There's not that much freedom in the NBA to do what he did at EMU. And he's kind of inefficient even at EMU. And they didn't win much with the way he played. He had a chance to put himself under a microscope, and it, in my opinion, it kind of backfired on him. I think we could have more from him at EMU, and we just didn't get to see it. I thought we would see more of an evolved game from him, more tools in the tool belt, like instead of just chucking, dribbling up and throwing up a shot. I thought we'd see more than that, and we didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a good player, and I think he'll get drafted. I just don't think it's going to be in the lottery like some Pistons fans think, but I think he will get drafted. I just don't know where. Like I said, if I had to guess, it's probably late first, mid second. I think that's like between like 20 and 40 is probably his projections, in my opinion, anyways. But like I said, he's a good player. Man, now we got a lot of questions.
Let's see. 2 hours now. People want to see us do the marathon again.
Yeah. This comes from Cade Season. See him on Twitter all the time, so shout out to him. Do you agree with this? I think Cade will have 12 All-Stars, 1 MVP, 1 Finals MVP, and 10 All-NBA first teams, 3 first teams, and will be a Hall of Famer. But I love
I love that.
the confidence. I love that he's got a Finals MVP in there because that means we're winning the championship. I'll let you take this one because I don't know.
I will say, man, it's a hell of a resume. Let me just say that. Let me just talk about the 2 MVPs. I think a Finals MVP would probably be more realistic than a regular season MVP. I don't ever think I'll see a regular season MVP in my lifetime as a Pistons fan, unless something extraordinary happens. I'm not saying Cade can't do it. I'm just saying, being a Detroit Piston, I don't think that the Pistons have ever had a regular season MVP. I could be wrong about that, but maybe Bob Lanier or Dave Bing were, but I don't. And, right now, without looking it up, I don't think they've ever had a regular season MVP. So, yeah, the Finals MVP, I think that's more realistic. 10 All-NBA teams, yeah, that just means I'm just excited that Cade's playing 65 or more games with over 10 years. That's incredible in itself. Multiple-time All-Star, I'll agree with you. Man, but 12, that's a lot. But I'm hoping for it. I'm hoping that this is his resume. Let me just say that. I'm hoping that this is his resume. But, man, yeah, I don't know. I don't even want to be negative about it. I'm just hoping all that happens. But I think a Finals MVP is more likely than a regular season MVP just because he plays for the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, I don't even know if I don't want to give an answer on this because it's so early in his career. I do think he'll have multiple All-Star selections. I think he could put up the stats to put him in a conversation with the MVP if he stays healthy. It's just we saw him average 26 and 6 on one leg. If he's healthy, he could probably get you up to 25, 7 and 7 at his peak. But questions like this, I love. I think the only way you would know this is if you go on 2K and just sim out his career and see what happens. And let me know, Kate Season. Why don't you do that on 2K? See how many MVPs he wins and how many championships and All-Star selections he does have, because see what 2K has to say, because obviously we don't have a crystal ball, but I do appreciate the question.
Isaiah Thomas had 12 All-Star appearances. Bob Lanier is second with 7. If Cade ends up between those two,
yeah,
that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But so far, there's never been a regular season MVP for the Detroit Pistons. We've had one 6-man of the year. That was Big Nasty. We've had a citizenship award a few times. That's cool. Yeah, but no regular season MVP. It has not been done for the Pistons, man. That's pretty crazy.
I mean, if he does it, that'd be really cool, but we'll see. Let's see.
There's one thing you missed, though, Kate Season. You didn't say his jersey would be retired. Not hanging in the rafters. You missed one.
Yeah. Honestly.
That was a great resume, though. Seriously, that was awesome.
Yeah, I'm just starting some questions. And we'll see. Let's see. Okay, we got 3 questions. So this is from Chris, who watches the show a lot. Wants to know what our perfect offseason would be. So why don't we start with the draft? Who would you want? Maybe just at 5, because who knows if we're even keeping the 31 pick, and maybe a free agent that you would want.
So
keep it simple.
Perfect offseason for me would be, well, ideally everybody going into the offseason healthy. Let me just start it off that way. That would be ideal. But since that's not happening right away, for the 5th pick, I'm just gonna say Trace Walker, and then Cameron Johnson would be the perfect free agent for me if that could happen. I would love to see a starting lineup of Cade and Ivy in the backcourt, Cameron Johnson and Trace Walker at the 3 and the 4, and then Jalen Duren at the 5. That would be ideal for me. That would be an ideal offseason. And Javon Carter. Let me get him as the backup point guard too.
Okay. I think perfect offseason. Like I said, you asked me right now, I'd probably go Taylor Hendricks at 5. And just one free agent we could get. I know he's He's not a free agent right now. He'd have to opt out. But I'd be interested in Porzingis if he opts out of his contract.
Whoa, real quick. I'm pretty sure a few weeks ago you laughed at me for saying this. Okay.
Did I?
I'm pretty sure. I think you were just like, no. That's awesome, though. I like Porzingis. Maybe you did. We'll have to go back.
I'd have to scrub back.
I don't know if you made fun of me, but my feelings were hurt a little bit.
No, I do that from time to time. I'm an asshole. You'll get used to it. But yeah, like Porzingis, Cam Johnson, like I think Porzingis would be interesting, but like the health kind of concerns me, and he would have to opt out. Like I know some Pistons fans have mentioned Kuzma again; he'd have to opt out. I don't know. I was just trying to kind of have a hot take there, trying to be different from you.
Dude, I like Kristaps Porzingis. That would be really cool. That would be really cool to have him in. I would go then. I mean, if they had a guarantee from Kristaps Porzingis, I would probably say like, yeah, go ahead and get Cam Whitmore then at 5. That'd be cool.
Yeah. You know what I don't understand, and I know it'll never change, is like I'd love to have free agency first and then have the draft after.
That would be cool too, yeah.
It would change like a time. I know it won't happen though, because they always do the draft first. Like if you had free agency like right now and then have the draft like in July, dude, that would be kind of cool, but I don't see the NBA doing that.
No.
Like honestly, but oh man, I can't believe I said Porzingis just to be different.
Dude, you're coming around, man. He's an awesome player. He averaged 23 a game this past year.
Yeah.
He's one of the better protectors too.
I completely forgot we were live on Facebook. Holy crap. This is a question from Matthew on Facebook. I think if you're the Pistons, you go after the following: Cam Johnson, Anthony Simons, Kyle Kuzma, Tim Hardaway Jr. Any of these guys would be great. Everyone is high on getting Jeremy Grant back, but he's more than likely staying in Portland. So what are the odds there? It's not really a question. It's more of just like a observation. But with his list, like Cam Johnson, who's a restricted, Anthony Simons, who you would have to trade for, but I think Portland's probably just going to rebuild and trade Dame personally. Kuzma, who I just mentioned, player option, is going to have to opt out. I think it's only like $12 million, so he probably will. Tim Hardaway Jr., another guy you got to trade for. I see what he's going for. He's going for like those wings to kind of complement the Pistons, but like I would probably go Simons out of anybody like at that 2 spot.
Yeah, I would like Anthony Simons out of that. I'd probably still go for Cameron Johnson out of that list just because I don't know. I don't want to do what Portland's doing and have a small backcourt. Like it'd be kind of weird to have Cade. It'd be fun offensively to have Anthony Simons, Jaden Ivey, and Cade, but I'd rather take the 6'10" forward and Cam Johnson. But also, like we were talking about last week, like the past few podcasts, that we're getting kind of carried away with the free agency thing a little bit. We're always looking for like the bigger names, like the high profile guys, when we really should be looking at like those second tier free agents. And, like your Harrison Barnes or your Josh Richardsons or,
like
Ubres.
I probably would pass on Tim Hardaway. Not to say he's not a good player. It's just that contract's really high. And Dallas is such a mess financially. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if like Luka left because the contracts are just so bad, man. Like they're really screwed.
I mean, and Tim Hardaway Jr., him and Alec Burke are kind of like the Spider-Man meme.
Yeah, Tim Hardaway Jr.'s kind of got a deeper bag, but like Alec Burks is making $10 million. Yeah. So I'd rather have Alec Burke, but it's not really a question, but like to your point, like I could see where you're coming from, where like you don't want to overpay for a free agent. You don't want to, pull a Charlie V or a Ben Gordon and you're stuck with them. But I feel like you can still be aggressive and get value, if that makes sense.
Oh, for sure.
Ooh, this is a good question from Ryan. Who can we pencil in at backups? Remember, typically it's a 9-man rotation. So backup point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center.
I mean, let's say if the starters are Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Bogey, and then either Jarace Walker or Taylor Hendricks, and then Jalen Duren. I could see the backups being Alec Burks, Isaiah Stewart. That's your 6 and 7 guys. If we're just going guys on the roster, Killian Hayes, that would be your 8. And then the 9-man, it would probably be James Wiseman, I would say.
Yeah, I would probably go Killian is your backup point guard, Ryan. Alec Burks in as your shooting guard. Small forward, I could either see Livers or Procida if he does decide to come over, if he makes the roster. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. We might just see him in Summer League and then he goes back over to Europe. So that could probably be your small forward. Power forward, I think Stewart starts. So I'll go Bagley as your backup power forward. And then center, I think it's going to be James Wiseman. I think that would be just your backups. But like I said, half that roster could be traded because Troy's crazy. You never know. you really never know. But I think that would probably be like my answer right now, June 11th, as we're recording this, because we haven't had the draft. We haven't had free agency. That could completely change of what a backup rotation could be.
Man, yeah, wow. I'm changing my answer. I'm taking Killian Hayes out of there and putting Isaiah Livers. Why did I do that? Why did I do that to my favorite player?
You think he's going to start though?
No, backup.
Oh, I was going to say, because
I was thinking like if you have Alec Burke coming off the bench, you could, stagger Cade and Jaden Ivey to be the ball handler with either of those lineups. So, getting the most out of your players, I would rather have. If we're just going with a 9-man rotation, I would rather have Isaiah Livers getting minutes over Killian Hayes.
Yeah, I didn't even see the 9-man rotation question. I just thought he meant like all the backups.
I'm assuming he meant man, but sometimes you can hit A and I. They're pretty close on the keyboard. So
yeah. No, I didn't even see the 9-man rotation. I just read who can you pencil in as the backups. I didn't even take that consideration. I think Killian and Burks for sure. So that's 7, and you got 2 more. That's hard.
That's what
Bagley. Ooh, man, that's tough. I don't know. Like, I think they might do a 10-man rotation just because of the bigs that they have. Because like you can't tell me that you traded for James Wiseman and he's sitting on the bench and you're not going to give him time. And then you can't tell me you can't play Livers because, like I said, as of right now, like Livers, for all intents and purposes, could be like a 15th man depending on like free agency in the draft. But like I said, it's kind of hard to answer this question so early into the offseason. I don't know, man. That's a great question, man. I'm going to be thinking about this tonight. Like what a 9-man rotation would be currently on this team. Man, shout out to Ryan, man. Did not see the 9-man rotation. I'm a jackass. Got a question from Nick. See him from time to time on Twitter. Do you think Cade is better than SGA and Halliburton? I think he's at least better than Halliburton. Could have been an all-star reserve this past season if not injured.
I think it's too early still to tell. I mean, we're talking about a 30-point scorer in SGA, and I think he was all NBA first team this past year. And then Tyrese Halliburton, I think he was 20 and 10 this past year for the Indiana Pacers. So, man, I think Cade can be better than him. I'll say that. I just think right now it's too early to tell. I mean, if he hadn't been hurt, there would be a clearer picture and it'd be easier to answer that question. But yeah, I mean, SGA had a great season and so did Halliburton. It's really hard for me to say that Cade is better than them both right now. I think if you were to do a start trade or start bench trade, it would probably be trade Cade, start SGA, and bench Halliburton or something.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to rank them as of right now, like just this season, it's probably SGA, it's probably Halliburton, and it's probably Cade. But Cade wasn't healthy. Like if Cade had a healthy season and he was dropping 27 and 7, I could put him over Halliburton easily. But those are three good guards. I would have a hard time ranking it, and I just wouldn't do it because I would probably get roasted on Twitter. Honestly, man, but like,
I mean,
I think SGA is better than Cade. I'll say that. I think it's close between Halliburton and Cade, and I mean it's really close. It just depends what you value.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Cade. I do think Cade will be. I do believe Cade will be better than both. Like as a Pistons fan, that's the bias in me because Cade does have a really great skill set. You know, I mean, I don't think stats wise, you know, I don't think Cade will ever average 30 points per game in the NBA. I just don't think the team will be designed that way for him to do that. I don't think that's Cade's game, but I think Cade could certainly do it. It's just I don't think we'll see it. But I mean, if you were asking me if I had a draft between these three, I'm going to go with Cade no matter what. You know, I mean, even though I do like SJ and I do like Tyrese Halliburton, but I want to gamble with Cade because I think Cade's game and the way he plays can really help your team win and put you in that contention for a championship based on what I've seen so far.
Yeah, I don't even think we've seen like Cade at his best yet. That's the part where it would be hard for me to put him over Halliburton, but I could understand if someone did put him over Halliburton just because of recency bias and just like what has he done for me lately, and because he's been injured. But I think Cade, similar to SGA, can play both ends of the floor. Not to say Halliburton can't, but I think Cade is just I don't want to say he's a better defender, but I'm just higher on Cade right now than I would be a Halliburton, if that makes sense.
It does.
Okay. Oh, this is a good question. It's a playoff question. I know we've talked about the playoffs a few times. This comes from JC Owens. He asks, can we get into the playoffs next season?
I mean, you've heard me before. I definitely think we can get into the playoffs.
Oh, we can. Okay, he didn't say can we. He said we can't get into the playoffs next season. It's not really a question. It's more of a statement. I think play-in should be the goal if they're healthy. We've had this conversation before. Like play-in last year was, I think, 40 wins.
Yeah.
Going from 17 to 40 is a big jump. But if you want to use Monty's first year from Phoenix, I think they were 19 and they went to 34 or 35, if I do remember correctly. So I'm not saying it's out of reach, but I think we're going to win more than 20 games this year. I think with the coaching staff that they're trying to bring, a veteran coaching staff, I think they're going to try to win games. And I think they're going to be competitive in these games. I hope we can make the playoffs, man. That would be really cool because during this restoring, man, it's been rough.
So when was the first year they did the play-in? Was it the 2020 season, 2020-21 season?
I have no idea, man. I have no idea.
I mean, if it was, I'm just going to say because the Hornets and the Pacers were playing teams. I believe it was, but they only had 33 and 34 wins. So, I mean, it could change every year because the year after or last season in 21 and 22, the playing teams were 43 and 44 wins. And then this past season, they were 40 and 41, I believe. Yeah, 40 and 41. So, I mean, you never know. I mean, you might not even have to get to 40 wins to be in a play-in. You could get 34 and be a play-in team. It just depends on, you know, all the improvements every team makes and who might be rebuilding, who's dumping large contracts in order to try to rebuild, you know? So, who knows? Like 40 wins may not even – right now, 40 is the goal to be a play-in team, but next year it could be, like I said, 34. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. Like conferences change. The East could just be completely terrible next year. But I don't think it's out of reach with the coach that you just hired who is good at developing. He's trying to bring in an established veteran staff to help this team get to that next level. And I think he's shown that he can get teams to that next level. Like I said, it's just dependent on health. It's dependent on everyone staying healthy. Hopefully we change our medical staff this year too. Like, honestly, man, I feel like we have like the worst medical staff in the NBA. Like, all jokes aside, like I think our medical staff is really bad.
I mean, Portland's was terrible for a long time, right?
Oh, with Gary Payton giving him like adrenaline shots. Yeah.
You should not even laugh at that. I forgot about that. I was just talking about like, I don't know, a lot of those guys that a lot of guys have been hurt in Portland over the years. Some guys just never even got a chance, like Greg Oden.
Yeah, like I feel like ever since Hardy Kander kind of stepped down, like our medical staff has been terrible.
No, I agree.
Yeah, like I don't know. I know maybe that's kind of a hot take, but like Chuck's had a funny question. Comment, to be fair, medical staff was sitting folks for headaches on Weaver's orders.
That's pretty awesome. So real quick, in 2020-21, that was the first year for the play-in. So it was 33 and 34 wins to get into the play-in
Okay.
game.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think it's out of reach. And like I feel like I said last year when we were doing this podcast, I thought they could make the playoffs if they were healthy.
Yeah.
But obviously they weren't healthy. They lost their best player. But like I said, I think, year 2 Ivy, year 2 Duran, would that be year 4 for Stewart and Killian? Like, they're getting older. You got vets like Bojan and Alec Burke. So probably try to add a few more this free agency that helped this team get back into playoff contention. I don't think it's out of reach because you have a coach that can, actually win basketball games and put you in a position to get there.
Yep. I got laughed at last time I said that.
About what?
About Monty Williams getting us into the play. Not by you, just by other people.
Yeah, it's just I think more people would probably agree with you if it was closer. Like if it was like October.
Yeah.
And we had a preseason to evaluate, but we haven't seen any of these guys gel. We haven't seen a Monty Williams offense. We've been so used to Casey's ISOs and dribble handoffs that I think his offense will be completely different from Casey. I think it's going to be way more up tempo. I think it's going to be a team that just runs a lot. It's going to be a fast transition team.
It's going to be fun, man. It really is. I'm excited for this upcoming season.
Yeah, me too. We're so far away. We're 2 weeks away from the draft, though, so I'm excited for that.
Of course.
All right, so we don't have any more questions. Well, this is actually a question to me. Luis wants to know how he can join the stream one day. Luis, you know what? We're gonna go live during the draft, and if you do want to come live with us during the draft, I will send you a link. You can join the show for however long you want to join it, and I think what's that, the 22nd or 23rd?
Man, don't make me just do this off the top of my head.
I think it's the 22nd or the 23rd is when the draft is. You can join us for a little bit, talk some Pistons, come on in. Like I said, he's so active in our new Pistons group chat that we have. I mean, he's more active than I am, and it's my group chat. I appreciate that.
It is though. What we should do is have audition tapes. Send us audition tapes.
Okay, so we can have a couple people join the live stream during the draft, just talk Pistons or just talk NBA draft because it's just such a fun time.
I tried doing this one time a few years ago during the NBA draft, and hundreds of people somehow got the link. And dude, it was crazy. It was over Zoom too.
Mm-hmm.
There was a dude just praying for everybody in the group chat.
With this service we use, you can't have more than 10 people in here. So we don't have to worry about that, and we can kick them out at any time. But like I said, I wouldn't kick someone out. That's just rude. But unless they're just kind of being disrespectful or anything like that. But why don't you tell the people where they can find the podcast, where they can rate it, and where they can follow you on social media?
Thank you guys for listening to the Pistons Talk Podcast. Do us a favor, go to Google, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. After you subscribe, leave a review, drop a rating, but more importantly, tell a Pistons fan.
Peace, guys.